Tonight, we take a look at the latest Picard episode, then we'll take a look at the latest Mandalorian episode, and conclude tonight's discussion with Deep Space Nine. But first, some pop culture news coming up right now on The Writer Brothers. And welcome back to The Writer Brothers, your Tuesday night home for Star Trek, Star Wars, and Star Trek again. I am, of course, your host, P.D. York, not Witch in Residence. That is, of course, Corione. And Pollo Zapatos, also not Witch in Residence, but anyway. Gentlemen, we've got quite the discussion ahead for tonight because we've got to talk about what is arguably the best episode that New Trek has ever come up with. But before we get to that, Corione, you've brought up our pop culture news segment, and this is an interesting topic of discussion that apparently, it could impact the way that pop culture reviews material all around, but at the same time, I don't know. Most things I typically disagree with Disney, but this is kind of an area that I'm almost on their side with. However, why don't you explain what exactly is going on, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, so this is kind of an interesting take, both from the leaker side and from Disney's side. So for those of you who are unaware, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania the script was actually leaked a little bit before it was released. Evidently, somebody got a hold of the Portuguese version of the script for translation purposes and leaked that online translated so that people could, check out the movie beforehand and basically spoil it if they wanted to. And it was on a specific subreddit called Marvel Spoilers. Well, apparently Disney didn't like that one bit at all. They've sued Reddit to get the IP addresses of the people who posted in that subreddit, whether they actually did the leaking or not. And they've also sued Google because apparently the file that had the leak on it was on a Google Drive, and they want the information of the person who owned the drive. So, on one hand, I get where Disney's coming from, right? They want to stem the leaks in their operation. On the other hand, going after somebody using DMCA takedown notices to try to get a hold of their information, hold sites hostage, going through the whole legal system, hiring PIs, hiring lawyers, it seems kind of draconian. And it really makes you wonder, is this where they're going to stop, right? Because they had the entire subreddit shut down, not just this leak. And they're actually blaming the individuals involved. And in the article, it talks about how Disney is seriously considering suing them for the loss of revenue from Quantumania because they feel that the leaks cost them money in the box office. Now, I personally disagree with that because the movie was just bad. But, they're convinced that it was because of this leak. Well, the question becomes how many people actually read the leak? And then the question becomes how many people took the information from that leak as anything negative about the story, given that, it was the story. And then how many people didn't watch it because of that leak? It's really subjective. It's really hard to do. And it really feels like Disney is cracking down on this group simply to try to prevent leaks like this from the future. And I don't really like chilling of speech. As a rule, I'm not a big fan of that behavior. So, for me personally, I'm not a big fan of this. It also makes getting leaks out of, potentially important news to people more difficult in the future. And let's be honest, some people want the spoilers. Look, I get some people don't like spoilers, and that's fine. But some of us actually do like it. Some of us actually find it enhances what we're doing to have those spoilers. So, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Um, well, to be perfectly honest, I think this is definitely a gray area because on the one hand, I agree that, how far is too far in this? We're going to start going out of our way to dox people to stop leakers. On the other hand, I mean, there's a couple of schools of thought we can go down with here. And I think the one I'm going to rest on is, well, I'm familiar with non-disclosure agreements. I've signed one or two in my lifetime, believe it or not. And so when you commit to that, you are committing to keeping that information secret. Now, on the one hand, sure, we could say that if there's something that's bad about it that they want to leak, that they want to put out there, obviously they have their ways of doing it. But on the other hand, consider the product itself. I beta tested Halo Infinite, and there were 0 leaks that came from the campaign side of the house. There were actually 0 leaks that came out at all during the production because everyone believed in it. When I got to play the story in July of 2021 ahead of everybody else, I was like, the reason it was hard to contain myself was because I was so excited for my friends and family to get to share the story. Like, guys, it's actually a return to classic Halo in a lot of ways, but it's also its own thing. And I had to be quiet about it. But that's because the product was decent. It was good enough for my standards and everyone else's standards that we didn't feel the need to hurt the property because it was like, guys, it's worth the wait. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, if you want to stop leaks, stop producing garbage. That's probably the best advice I can give. That's the easiest advice that I can give. Otherwise, sure, we could argue the fact that Disney did put out these NDAs, people violated them, Disney wants to follow up on them and get their monies back and blah, blah, blah. I agree that your assessment of whether or not Quantum Mania failed at the box office, they're not going to have a case for that. The movie sucked, and from what I heard, and I have 0 interest in seeing it. I wasn't going to see it with or without the leaks. So, Disney, if you guys are watching, I wasn't going to pay money for it regardless. I had no interest in it. I've been done with Marvel since Endgame. And even honestly, by Endgame, I was getting tired of the cape shit personally. But, when other friends like to get it, you want to be happy for them and enjoy it with them if, you like your friends. And so that's why I've just gone along with it. But I'm over the whole cape scene. Unless you're going to give me a Mystery Men sequel, I don't really care at this point. Hell, I actually had a friend of mine ask me my top 5 superhero films recently, and just to give you an idea of where Marvel sits in all of this, my list ended up coming out with The Dark Knight,
okay,
Mystery Men,
sure,
No Way Home, The Incredibles, and Avengers 1. So, okay. The only recent Marvel film that wasn't even just a Marvel movie, it was also a Sony film, was No Way Home. So, yeah, I don't think there's any case here that it's the problem of the leakers that's causing the issues. I think it's just that your products suck and people aren't excited for them, and that's why they're telling the world, hey, this is what you guys can expect. And oh wow, I suddenly don't want to pay $30 for a single ticket or whatever the ridiculous price is now these days to sit in a theater next to a bunch of strangers to be miserable for 2 hours in a movie I'm not going to enjoy.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, so ultimately, yeah, you're 100% correct. Like, the reason why we haven't gotten a lot of, like, for example, Mandalorian spoilers is because the crew on Mandalorian actually likes the product.
Right? The stuff we've heard is just rumors that, whether or not they're going to use the Veil of the Force to correct the Disney sequel trilogy, although I've also heard rumors against that now, so I don't know. I guess all we can do is watch the show and find out. So
there you go.
I think that will that'll conclude that particular segment. Now, if this year the Oscars happened again, as they do every year, you probably didn't care because aside from Slapgate, there was nothing special about last year's Oscars, except for a bunch of continued Hollywood hypocrisy. The usual reasons why we probably, most normal people like us on this show, just don't care for these award shows. It's literally just Hollywood stroking their own ego, for lack of a better euphemism. However, I did catch up on what did happen, and I must say, most of the stuff that I saw, most of the winners, I felt it was well deserved.
Yeah.
And so, with that, we'll go ahead and do some recognitions that we feel. Okay, so Brendan Fraser, I've always liked this guy. I haven't heard hardly any bad things about him. I mean, not that that would change my opinion. We're all human. We're allowed to make mistakes.
And he's been through hell, man.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. John, we got a bot in the Twitch chat. If you could vaporize it, please. Orville Nation, hail, welcome to the discussion. And Eddie Art writes in, everything after Endgame has sucked, for sure. Oh, and hello, everybody. Well, hello to you, Eddie. I'm glad you came back for more.
If you feel that way, and I do respect your opinion on that, but I would recommend watching my video on Doctor Strange 2, because I think a lot of people miss the point of the movie.
Well, I might even have to watch that. But anyway, when the Oscars, when good people get proper recognition, even if it's an award show that I personally don't believe in, well, I believe in the people, and they believe in their award shows. And so when the good guys win, I like to give recognition to when the good guys win. And when it comes to Brendan Fraser, excuse me, he's a good guy. He won. Absolutely deserved. I haven't seen The Whale yet. I've been meaning to. I just haven't had the time. But what do you guys think?
Well, first, you haven't seen The Whale? Dude, the guy's like 500 pounds. How could you possibly miss him? But
as a recovering fat ass, I find that humorous as well.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, like I said, Brendan Fraser's been through hell. He's thankfully had a bit of a resurgence over the last couple of years. I think his first outing back was in Doom Patrol, and I'm super happy to have him back. He was one of my favorite action stars in The Mummy and what have you, and I'm really glad to see him succeeding, and I hope he continues to do so. I've always felt he's a decent actor, and it's time he got recognized for it.
Absolutely, 100% agree. John, you've been quiet so far. What are your thoughts?
Well, I was actually trying to look up what happened to Brendan Fraser, because I heard something about like he was one of the victims of Harvey Weinstein's like wrath, and I couldn't remember if that was exactly true. So I was always
no
to see if that was true.
No, he had been he was the male poster child for Me Too, shall we say. But when he tried to speak up about it, he got blacklisted.
Right, but wasn't he like early? Like that's like, because I remember him getting blacklisted like after The Mummy.
Yeah, he tried to come forward about his experiences, and Hollywood blacklisted him for it. Then a few years later, Me Too happens, and suddenly everything's out in the open and whatnot, but Brendan Fraser's still canceled in Hollywood. He couldn't get a job as a singing busboy. And it's only very recently he's been able to come back.
Right, so like that's what I was thinking, like as far as like a lot of what we talk about is like welcome back and everything, but also like to all the people that held him down. Like, look at how horrible you are. You protected Weinstein and ruined this guy, but hey, at least you finally noticed and gave him an award at the Oscars.
Yeah, I just would like to extend to anybody who worked against Brendan Fraser to be successful a huge heartfelt, resounding fuck you and fuck off from society forever. We don't need that kind of garbage, and there's just no, it's unacceptable what happened to him, and yeah, it shouldn't have taken as long as it did to get the recognition. Yeah, it shouldn't have taken as long as it did. Coming in through somewhere. It shouldn't have taken as long as it did. Coming in through somewhere. Okay, yeah, let's make sure our audio is good so we don't, feed myself back. As much as I like listening to myself talk, not in that way. Anyway, as I was saying, it really is sad to what happened to him, and it's unacceptable. And the other part of it is because there's this archaic belief that's coming through our society, and that is that men can't be raped, and that's a load of crap. Men absolutely can be taken advantage of. It's not a man versus woman problem. It is a human problem. Regardless of gender, it is something that needs to be acknowledged, and that victims are victims regardless of, whatever's in between their legs. And that's really... This, I think, is a start. This does not mean that, okay, we're better as a society, we figured out the problems. No, this is just the beginning of making up for the horrible things that we as people have done to each other. This is just the beginning of Hollywood starting to atone for its sins, so to speak. I was also very happy that independent film basically swept all that. That's a very good sign, because it shows that Hollywood's monopoly on entertainment is over at this point. I mean, last year we saw some good independent film taking the Oscars and from Apple TV, and this, I think, was just further emphasis that people, they don't want garbage anymore. They want good quality entertainment. And obviously The Whale is really good with all the awards that it's actually won in the independent community. And of course, now we'll move on to our next star that we're recognizing. That is, of course, Michelle Yeoh for her performance in Everything Everywhere All at Once. Another movie I haven't seen yet, guys. I know, we're going to have to play catch up on these, because I've, again, heard nothing but good things. Hannah just found out that movie was made in 38 days. Which, yep. I mean, what a slap in the face to every big production that spent millions of dollars. You got beat by a movie that took just slightly over a month. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Everything Everywhere All at Once also got Best Picture, and of course, Best Actress was Michelle Yeoh, and she is fantastic. I felt that her talent was wasted on Star Trek Discovery. She deserved better, and here's better.
Yep.
Anyway, guys, what are your thoughts on this one?
Honestly, the first time I ran into Michelle Yeoh was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And I recognized her timing as being just absolutely perfect in that. I mean, yeah, it's a kung fu flick with, wire fu being the predominant, force in the universe. But you could see that she was a solid actress and that she definitely had what it takes to succeed in that business. And I'm glad she's gotten the opportunities that she's gotten and now has moved on to, being able to actually take home one of what's arguably the biggest award for actors and actresses in the world. And I think that's great.
You know what? Maybe it's a bit of both. Maybe these award shows only matter when there's proper recognition. Like, the reason that I stopped watching the Academy Awards was because The Dark Knight got snubbed. Now, I don't mean snubbed like they didn't win in 2008. I don't necessarily think they deserve to win Best Picture, while I do think it is the greatest superhero movie ever made. They didn't even get nominated. And the reasoning for the time that they didn't get nominated was because Hollywood didn't want to nominate superhero films. 10 years later, that decision changes for the token nomination of Black Panther because reasons, I guess. Even though Black Panther, as a film, regardless of the political nonsense, it's really just okay. It's not that great. So
yeah, I was going to say it's the most average of the MCU movies.
Yeah, it's not terrible, but I've only watched it once, and I'm going to watch it never again. So, take that what you will. So
honestly, Civil War was a lot better.
Yeah, I agree. But the fact that these independent films are now taking the big awards, I think that is absolutely a sign that maybe these award shows are going to have their credibility again, because now we're going based back on quality, and that's it. So the last recognition that I wanted to give, of course, or not the last, second to last, my bad. Mm-hmm. I totally forgot about Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm a little bit under the weather, guys. Please forgive me. I'll be a bit slower than normal. This was probably my favorite speech to watch. Him getting his award and just like going through about chasing your dreams and everything, and being happy to tell his mom, hey, I know you're watching at home. There was so much wholesome moments. Like, this is what these award shows are supposed to be about. Recognizing the personal accomplishment of actors who've been through a lot. And he has also had an interesting story to go along with his life and career and how he got into film and everything. And so another just well-deserved win, absolutely. But I think go ahead.
Yeah, and if you guys haven't seen the image of him getting a hug from Harrison Ford after winning the award, it'll warm your heart. The other good one I liked was him and Jamie Lee Curtis behind the backstage crying together. That she won as well. That's a really heartwarming thing. The dude is like, this guy, man, he's been through so damn much. And he chased his dreams, and to get kind of there where you actually are at that point where you've won the award, and you've been proven to be at the top of your game. I think that's just fantastic, and I think it's amazing for him, and I really wish him all the best in his future endeavors because he deserves it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that assessment, and yes, it was it was well deserved. Corey, why don't you go ahead and queue up and explain the last one, our last but certainly not least.
Yeah, she has been known in Oscar communities as like the perpetual bridesmaid. She's gotten a ton of nominations over the years for various roles, everything from serious to the silly, comedy, drama, action, adventure. She's gotten nominated for every conceivable role you can imagine, and she finally won. Do I necessarily think she deserved to win for this role? I don't know. She was good, and it was an amusing role, but I don't know if she deserved to win it for this one, but she definitely deserved to win one finally, and she got it.
That's kind of how I felt with Leo getting his Oscar for The Revenant, because I was like, I mean, it was a cool movie, sure, but he deserved it for, in my opinion, his performance in Django Unchained. I think that he did a fantastic job in that film.
Really? I was going to say The Aviator.
Another good one that would have absolutely been worthy as well. It's just, with The Revenant, he got an Oscar for, like, the movie that he does the least amount of spoken lines of his entire career, and I'm like, I mean, it's good, but I also only, again, I didn't really find any rewatchability with that movie, and I felt like the whole point of this film was, let's just get Leo his damn Oscar, Yeah,
he almost felt like The Bear deserved to win more, but Leo
pushed absolutely. It up in honor, but like, right? The fact that Bear didn't even get a nomination is why I still can't take the Oscars seriously,
There you go. But yeah, no, honestly, I'm glad Jamie Lee Curtis won, and she was so happy afterwards. The images of her just welling up with tears and crying her eyes out at finally succeeding and getting the recognition she does deserve. It's fantastic to see that she got it, and like I said, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and that's really why I wanted to bring these up too. It was a moment to celebrate these individual accomplishments and the fact that they were happy. So, trying to just be happy for them. Like, well done all around to all the winners at the Academy. It seems like it was all well deserved, at least in my opinion. Kind of wish I had watched, but then I was glad I didn't. Nice to have the internet. I can pick which speeches I want to watch and skip all the other filler crap. Yeah. But with that, it is now, of course, time to adjust the lighting and begin our Picard Episode 4 review. Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes, I'll just go ahead and start with my little diatribe about how I felt overall. Well, okay, we've got to do non-spoiler overview. Non-spoiler overview first. I absolutely loved it. I felt episodes 1 through 4 in of itself, like the rest of the series, can just take a nosedive because it was written and executed in such a way that 1 through 4 is kind of its own contained miniseries, if you subtract the Raffi parts. But even on our rewatch, once Worf came into the picture, we started watching those again, because, come on, Worf. I felt that this really showed that a lot of the criticism of episode 1, 2, and 3 was greatly misplaced, because we all went into this expecting an instant, here come our TNG heroes. They're going to be just like they used to be. It's going to be like it was. And that's not realistic at all. These guys have to figure out how to work together again. And that's the whole point of episodes 1 through 3, is to illustrate how disconnected they've become from each other because, well, one of them went off for 20 years. Okay, there's spoilers for episodes 1 through 3. The other went off and had a family, and then, of course, we know Picard just loves Starfleet so much he stayed with it till they kicked him out. There's a lot that can happen in people's lifetimes. Lots of things can change. I myself look back at my life and I go, wow, who the hell was that dumbass? Excuse me. And I'm just like, life changes you, especially traumas. And I think the biggest overlook with the character of Picard that most people don't even think about is the stuff that he went through in Generations. In Generations, Picard first gets informed that he's now the last of his bloodline. His nephew and brother that we meet in the follow-up episode, Family of Best of Both Worlds. Arguably, I'd say Family is the better episode, and really, you can't really watch Best of Both Worlds without Family. You kind of got to watch all 3 episodes to really understand that arc. So we don't have his family's gone, and in the process of dealing with all of this, he loses his command, he resurrects a legend, buries said legend, and then the episode ends all happy and cheery because it's TNG, and just like on the show, we put a bow on it and everything's fine, right? Wrong. That is the biggest failure, I think, in Generations, is not showing Picard's proper response to the trauma. Instead, it's all, yeah, well, this was hard, but we gotta get back out there and explore space. And it's like, no. If I went through that, my final scene on that is gonna be, yeah, that's my photo album, thank you, and, yeah, my ship's gone, and my family's gone, and I don't know if you guys are going to get reassigned to a new crew. I don't know what's happening after this. It's not going to be that reset button cherry on top moment. It's going to be a lot of trauma to deal with. So inadvertently, the characterization of Picard in the follow-on movies of him being an action hero makes perfect sense, because then he doesn't want to deal with the Borg in First Contact, and, from there, every single moment we see action movie Picard, well, yeah, his character changed. This isn't going to be TNG Picard. If you want TNG Picard, guys, just go rewatch TNG, if that's what you're looking for. The way forward is that things are going to change. Characters change. Life changes you, and that's what I think the first 2 seasons of Puke were a nightmare. I'm not going to argue that they were okay. They were bad. They were not the proper continuation of the Picard character. This absolutely is. This is the Picard in his older years, and the whole premise of episodes 1 through 4 is getting the band back together, and so overall, I like it. But let's keep it non-spoiler, guys, real quick, and then we'll get into spoilers right after. So, Corion, why don't you go first?
Okay, look, I'd love to be able to say that this was terrible and I hated it and blah, blah, blah. I can't, okay? This was better. This is what okay. In a lot of ways, I'm happy about this episode, but it also makes me mad. I'm happy that we got good Trek. I'm mad because it took us this long to get good Trek.
Fair enough.
Right? Like, this episode proves that they were capable of doing it the whole damn time and just didn't. And that's what bugs me. What else bugged me was, we still have the legacy of all the previous crap that's come before, right? We still have all the disco, all the Picard 1 and 2 that's still there, that's been affecting this. Look, we still have terrible lighting throughout the ship, right? I'm starting to wonder if the ship is crewed by Morlocks. Like, it's bad, okay? I did like that we got a reversal and everyone kind of realizing, wait a minute, we've been screwing up, okay? I did like that Shaw finally was able, we finally got an explanation for why Shaw was such...
Explanation for why Shaw was such a bad dude, got it.
Yeah. I like that we got to see Seven actually do something cool for a change, right? The problem is, though, the consistency kind of wasn't there. And I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of this episode sprinkled through the first 3. That's my opinion on it. Because, yes, this episode was good, but now I'm worried that this is going to be the best episode that we get, right? I'm now nervous about that because I don't know, right? And I'm hoping it's not. I'm willing to give them a shot, right? I guess this is the best way to put it. I have been so abused by Trek that I'm now constantly worried they're going to screw this up again somehow. And that's not a great place to be in. So I guess this is the best way I can say it. This is what we wanted to see. We got a Trek-like explanation for the general problems that they're facing. We saw the crew pull together. We saw Picard and Riker work out their nonsense. We saw the sit down and work out what the heck is going on pieces that we needed. We got what we wanted, we got what we needed. We got the parts to put together finally. My issue is, though, that it took us this long to get here, and we still have those legacy bits and pieces that we're going to have to, the new Trek bits and pieces that we have to work our way out of. Once they do that, I think they have a fantastic show there. I'm worried they're not going to have enough episodes in this season to do it, but they could do it, in theory, right? And it drives me nuts that this is probably going to be the last season of Picard, and they finally got things figured out, and then they're going to be able to do good and then end it. And that's going to be, Kurtzman's argument of, well, I should get another season because this one was so popular.
Terry deserves another season.
I absolutely agree that Terry deserves. You know what Terry deserves? Terry deserves an opportunity to do Trek without all the baggage of new Trek. Okay? I would love to see that. I think that would be great. But we got to get there. Right? And I guess that's kind of where I'm at right now. John, what do you got?
Yeah, I think you guys, as far as like non-spoilers, I think you guys really hit all the major points on the head. So, I mean, I enjoyed it. Honestly, for me, I was nervous coming into the discussion, thinking like you guys were going to have all of these like insider tips on why it was actually bad, because I was like, this was fun. I'm happy to be here. But yeah, I think you nailed the non-spoilers.
Okay. Yeah, before we go to spoiler, I will just conclude on that. Like, I'm kind of getting to the point where a lot of here's the thing. If you don't like something, walk away. That's it. Don't let it consume your life. Don't let it torture you if it's causing you torture. And I feel that at this point, a lot of the legacy diehards are choosing to hate it still because for some reason, if they admit it's good, it, for whatever reason, hurts their credibility. Okay, credibility isn't about being right. Credibility is being able to admit when you are wrong about something. That's why on this show, we set our expectations if we feel we have them, but I went into this show with no expectations. I was going in clean slate. We're going to give this a try. We're going to evaluate it based on what the product is, and we're going to evaluate it based on how it reflects to Star Trek, and I'm going to try and find the positives if there are any. There's a lot of positives when you clear your mind of past grudges, and I agree with a lot of the concerns that this could rope us back. Here's the thing. If they go back to the Kurtzman formula, I'm out. I'm walking away from Trek for good. I'm not ever going to try it again. Same with Star Wars. If Mandalorian does decide to preserve the sequel trilogy, I'm out. I'm walking away. I'm not going to go on a hate train. I don't want negative. I don't want this channel to ever become something that feeds on the negative. When we did Halo, we did the first episode and we all collectively agreed, nah, screw this, we're out. And that's it. We haven't talked about Halo. Now, that means that I don't get to have an opinion on the rest of Halo, but I don't want to. So, it's that simple. It really is that simple. If you don't like it, walk away. Now, I will just say one more thing before we go on to the thing is, I think an opportunity will be presented now that Discovery is going away, that more or less a new Trek show slot is up, and I think the opportunity is to try and apply the Roddenberry formula. I understand that there's a lot of Star Trek diehards, 735 Club members, all you guys, no personal grudge or anything against you. However, consider this fact. A show based on the Roddenberry Bible might only make 2 or 3 seasons, because the first Star Trek show that was based on the Roddenberry Bible lasted only 3 seasons. People argue that, I personally feel that Deep Space Nine is peak Star Trek. There are people who are diehard TOS fans who argue that DS9 is not real Star Trek because it violates the Roddenberry rules. Okay, DS9 proves that the Roddenberry rules aren't going to work as a formula for Star Trek. Star Trek needs diverse storytelling. Star Trek needs a variety of styles to reach different audiences. That's what Lower Decks proves, that's what Prodigy proves, and that's what this sort of more hybrid mini arcs within large arc storytelling that Picard Season 3 is proving. Yes, I think we could have a Star Trek show that's episodic, that's based on the Roddenberry rules. I think that is worth trying to do now at this day and age, because a lot of new Star Trek fans have come to like classic Star Trek as a result of New Trek. So I think it's worth trying at least once. But to stick to your guns, to put your feet in the mud, to say that, oh, if it's not Roddenberry, it's not Star Trek, well, then you don't get any new Star Trek whatsoever. You isolate your taste, and that's not... Star Trek is proving that Star Trek works with more flavors, is really all I'm getting at. Now, that said, you aren't required to like all of it. You are allowed to go, I like this Star Trek, I think this Star Trek is bad. And that's what I would like to get back to arguing. No politics, no personal attacks, no, oh, you voted XYZ, so you must, that's why you hate it. No, that's gone. We were not doing that anymore, and I won't tolerate it on this show either. Let's just argue why we like different Star Treks and keep it at that. That's what I like to do. But with that, it's time to go to spoiler time. So who's eager to talk spoilers first?
Okay, I am going to say this, now that we're in spoiler mode. Look, I thought it was cool that it was like a life form. The CG effect on those squids was really bad. Like, it was bad.
In my opinion, the CG has been subpar the whole time, so...
Fair.
It literally looks like brushed up Star Trek Online. It's not... It's okay. I'm not saying it's bad, it's just not that... It's not 2009 Star Trek good. I'll just say that.
Like, I'd buy them a copy of Unreal Engine if I thought they would use it.
Yeah, I don't even know if that would improve the CG at this point, just because...
Fair enough.
Maybe that's all they're using right now, and they just don't know how to make it look better. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm just, like... I know that's a little bit nitpicky, but that's really how I felt about it.
I actually disagree. I think that's a fair play. The CG is not up to... The CG standards for me were 2009 Trek. And even season 1 of Discovery looked really good, too. Now, I don't know what changed, but like Strange New Worlds looks like a cartoon for the CG. And sadly, this one kind of does too. Like, rewatching those 4 episodes, I was like, really trying to lose myself in the illusion, but I feel like I could just take better video in Star Trek Online.
Yeah, and like, look, I'm going to be on, like, my personal opinion, the CG, my minimum level of acceptable CG, okay, at this point is Babylon 5 Lost Tales, which they did, like, I think it was like 5 or 6 years after the end of Babylon 5. And you could really see the difference between OG Babylon 5 and the 2 little mini episodes that they did for Lost Tales. It looks absolutely phenomenal, but that is my minimum level because that came out like 5 years ago now, right? So if you can't hit at least that mark, you're doing something wrong, right?
Yep.
You're not doing it right.
Nemesis of Eden writes in, Hail PD, Pollo Zapatos, Corion in chat. I hope you're doing awesome tonight. Hey, Nemesis, made better now that you're here.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I will say that. I will say I did like the conversations between Shaw and Seven in regards to the Changeling and them trying to figure out how you decide who the Changeling is on the ship. I thought that was absolutely a great way to play it. I don't necessarily think that this particular Changeling was that good at Changeling. Otherwise, he would have come dripping through a wall and just obliterated these guys, but whatever, right? You know, I mean, we remember, you know, for spoilers for Deep Space Nine, but, you know, these guys are no slouches when it comes to showing up and ambushing people, right?
Well, okay, so I rewatched episodes 1 through 4, and I've noticed something that we may have missed. First of all, Riker snaps back at the comet, calling the Galaxy class a fat one. I didn't notice it at first. I only noticed on the second watch through, I was like, oh, Riker actually checks her on the spot and says, that's Galaxy class to you, young lady. So That's a beautiful moment that illustrates the new Trek fans versus the legacy fans. Okay? There's no condonation of her expression calling the Galaxy class the fat one as acceptable. The Riker actually checks her on the spot and goes, Nope, that's Galaxy class to you, young lady. So we already have moments that are designed to kind of make Picard season 3 be that middle ground, that bridge, that divide between fans, and it's working. I think it's working just fine. Not everybody's on board. That was actually to be expected. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I mean, that's my piece on the changeling part. I'm hoping we find out more about what's going on in that kind of that arc. Like I'm waiting.
Oh, right. Sorry. The whole point I brought that up. The changelings. There's moments that we see people that are manipulating the situation to affect an outcome. So that's probably why the changeling didn't go, destroy them, because they don't want to kill them. They want to manipulate them for, guess we got to keep watching.
Right. I'm just saying, like, as an example, like, unless Shaw is absolutely necessary to the whole thing, right? Him surviving after getting the one port open so they could have limped away is iffy. But there we go. I will say that the one thing, though, there were two pieces that really worked for me. First, even though the explanation was silly about why the holodeck had its own independent power supply, I did like that they brought in that scene. I did like that Picard got I thought that worked. And I did like Riker coming up to Picard, and Picard going to Riker, and the two of them trying to apologize to each other. That really worked. And them going like, what the hell are we doing fighting? Right? Like, that moment of recognition of, we got to get back in the groove of this, right? And them realizing, hey, like, one of us has to be the bigger man, and I'm going to beat you to the punch, so yeah, I'm sorry first, right? Like, perfect, okay? The scenes in the bar, perfect, right? We even feel like we get why Picard is such a controversial figure in the Star Trek universe. Because on one hand, he's this, he's been, he took over cowboy diplomacy from Spock and Kirk, right? He became the new cowboy diplomat. Cool. But on the other hand, he's also probably responsible for the biggest disaster the Federation has ever had. So I get it, right? And I think that works. Those were the scenes that really made it for me. I think I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of LaForge's kid being a friggin' sorcerer on the con. I thought that would have been really good, right? But we didn't get that. I think it was a missed opportunity. I would have liked to have seen more of that, though. So, yeah, there's my piece. John, what you got?
Well, I thought this whole episode was like a final to the introduction.
Agreed.
In the sense that, like, Terry obviously knew for a fact that people like us were going to give this a third shot. Depending on how you count it, it's like ninth shot, right? And so rather than like trying to tease us with a bunch of like very basic cameos like we've gotten in every other shot, all the other 9 seasons of whatever we've gotten, it's been nothing. But in this instance, like, Terry was like, this isn't a cameo. This is a final, like, send-off of Picard. We're supposed to write him out of this series like old people are supposed to be written out as they go on and finally go find their greener pastures. And so I really feel like Terry was just like, yeah, the Picard fans are coming back, so let's go. And so for the first 4 episodes, we're barely past, like, what, a day? We've gone 8 hours and we've met everybody. And, like, finally we have, like, emotional attachment beyond the cameos, beyond the stars that are being tracked, beyond just the starships. Like, I feel like everybody else that's written prior has just been like, hey guys, we've got this audience that wants this content. What are we going to give them? I don't know. Good enough. Let's go. And then Terry came in with Picard and was like, you mean their hero, their version of Smedley Butler, of just any version of war hero. And Terry decided to actually give that to us, like show us what that hero looks like. And I think this episode was like the first time that like we've really seen Star Trek captains be bad at their job. And not in the sense that like disaster strikes and Picard becomes a Borg. No, in the sense that like there was a ton of apologies that were necessary across the board. Like the whole reason Shaw comes off as this super D-bag, nobody wants to hang out with him, is because he hates Picard and everything attached to Picard. Like,
Yep.
Why was he a D-bag? Because he was acting like a D-bag. Like, he literally even apologizes to his whole crew. He goes, sorry, guys, I changed asshole for charismatic. Like taking the time to apologize to your crew, even, you know, one sentence apology, like, in the terms of leadership, that's like stabbing yourself in the heart and saying, here, guys, you deserve this, I don't. And that's what he did to his crew as soon as Picard left. But also, like, Picard just eating it. Like, I am a villain. I am the problem. And you hate me? I agree with you.
I hated me.
I hate me still. Like, Picard's been fighting, like you said earlier, Parker, like, not just generations, but that. He was literally forcibly Stockholm syndromed and the best at it. Like, that was a huge line that he put. Like, he was so good at being a Borg that the Borg named him. No other Borg ever got a name, and he got one because he was the best Borg. And that to Picard is like, I'm the greatest admiral, sure, but also the greatest Borg. And Picard knows what that costs, knows what that weight is. But then, to me, the coup de grace of the whole season already was, like, we're sitting here thinking about why would Beverly not tell Picard about Jack? Why would Jack not meet Picard? And what was it? It was just arrogance in the heat of the moment. And if that isn't the parents' folly, like, wow. Way to just humanize the whole story. Like, why doesn't Jack want to meet his dad? Because his dad said he never needed him. Did his dad know he was saying that to his son? No. But do dads say terrible shit to their kids on accident or on purpose? Absolutely. And did Picard make that mistake? King of all kings, captain of all captains, Borg of all Borgs, make that mistake? Yeah. Because human of humans is still a human, and they make mistakes. And it wasn't, I hate children. It wasn't, no, kids it would have ruined my experience. It was literally just like, oh, here's a snarky teenager thinking that Starfleet isn't all that. Let me show these Starfleet people how much passion I still have for it. Oh, that was my son. A few years later, he learns that. That was excellent. I loved it. So yeah, those are my total points for the episode.
Yeah, I think that everything, so addressing some of the naysayer complaints, some people are like, oh, we're just redoing Sisko. No, we're not redoing Sisko. Sisko was in no position to express how he truly felt in Deep Space Nine. And then the other thing people forget that I'll agree for the Star Trek universe, it's a point of discontinuity that 39 ships was the whole Starfleet. But that line of dialogue is uttered at the end of Best of Both Worlds, that the fleet was destroyed in the attack on Wolf 359. So this, of course, goes back to the fact that TNG is a product of its time. Human population was much smaller then. We didn't really have metrics to go off of. Now, of course, we understand living in today's economy.
We did have metrics to go off of. There's only like 52 aircraft carriers in the world.
Okay, but these are 52 aircraft carriers that each have a crew of 8,000.
No, I know, but I mean, if you scale that up, 39 of 30,000 or 39 of 15,000, and also all that metal.
Anyway.
I'm about to get super nerd here, but...
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so the Galaxy class at the time was the biggest ship that the Federation was using, and the standard complement was 1,014.
1,014 crew.
Yeah. Crew, not including families and whatnot, right? So, I think according to the last thing I saw, There were something like 4 galaxy classes there, so everything else would have been smaller ships, right? But I would also argue that, look, these are all the ships that they could have possibly gotten to between that Borg cube and Earth in time, right? Like,
Right.
I wouldn't say it's all of Starfleet. I would say it's a significant portion, right?
I would go back and
You could
rewatch
also-
because that is the line that they say. We'll get the fleet back up and running in a year, and so it's like,
So
Yeah.
there is a little bit of extra here that they can just use that as muddy. Like the Fleet Marine Force is broken up into different groups, right? So
Right.
we have 3 different groups. So you could technically say that Starfleet Earth Fleet was 39 ships destroyed. Starfleet Alpha Sector was 39
It's-
ships.
I'm just going based off of the dialogue that
Okay.
that was spoken on screen, which is arguably the most canon source of anything canon. So I'm just saying, based off of the dialogue, in response to the naysayers complaining, "Oh, we're just redoing Cisco again." No, we aren't redoing Cisco again. Cisco was a commander. He did not have the chance to be angry, and Picard had to basically like pull it out of him. Like, what? Why are you being so like dry professional with me? Because we met in battle. Oh, never mind then. Whereas Shaw is a captain who's relieved himself of duty and is currently on pain meds, and now is taking the chance to finally confront his demon that has been, haunting him since they hijacked his ship. Like, everything about Shaw makes perfect sense. I like Shaw even more. And you know what? I'm just gonna take this moment to do some F-bombs. Fuck you, I was right! Fuck you, I was right! Nah, I'm just kidding, guys. Just busting your balls a little bit.
See,
Look,
that was the thing. Corion and I were actually right. Because Corion and I called him a D-bag from episode 1, and now he's justified in his D-baggery.
yeah, I'm not saying.
Nothing changed. He's just also justified.
Yeah, look,
I know, I'm just messing.
I like that we got the explanation for his douchebaggery, but now we've gotten confirmation that in universe, no, other people would have considered him a douchebag too. So, I mean, I'll take it. I also, look, I can only imagine the internal monologue Picard has to have every time this conversation comes up. And I can't imagine it doesn't come up often for him, right?
39 ships with full crews of people, yeah, and the fact that Starfleet didn't kick you out, I mean, that's gonna have opinions
Right.
that are not favorable.
And I mean, anybody who didn't know him is probably going to have an attitude towards him, right? And I get that, like, and I respect it. On the other hand, part of me feels like we maybe should have seen a little bit more of that attitude between Shaw and Seven. Because, like, if he's this pissed at the Borg, why is she even on his ship?
Oh, okay. Keep your enemies closer. Like I think this episode really showed that what kind of Captain Shaw has actually always been.
On top of that, he makes her use her real human name. So
Yeah.
it might even have been some sick, twisted moment of, oh, I get an ex-Borg, I get to manipulate and control under my command, and she can't do anything about it.
And not
Maybe.
only that, but also like keep your enemies closer. And she's an enemy, so I'm gonna mess with her. But then also like there's a bunch of times where he subverted her until the one time when like she just doesn't care about protocol anymore, and she's like, look, we need to talk, here's what's going on. And he's like, wait a minute, you're not holding any of that against me? And I was. And then in the end, when she like says, how did you know which one was the actual LaForge? And she goes, well, LaForge calls me Seven out of respect. He goes, I don't get that. You just see it on his face. He's just like, I understand that is a term of respect for you. I don't understand it. I thought calling you your human name would make you feel more human, on top of also keep your enemies closer. Like a lot of his command is like, I know how to make these people good. And every time he's proved wrong, it turns out he actually does listen. Like, he really expected when he went off on Picard that he was going to get the admiral talking to a captain. And instead, Picard told everyone, no, he is right. His feelings are the real feelings, and they're also mine, so I'll leave.
Yeah.
And that to me, I think, is like, it's more of a testament to the writing and respecting the Gene Roddenberry code, because Shaw didn't get mad at Riker. He gave command to Riker. Who did he get mad at? A retired civilian admiral. And that, like, threading the needle, buddy, but that's the needle. It's still in the hole.
And then when the time came, Picard wins him over immediately by calling him a dipshit from Chicago, and it was like, you know what? This is the moment to let bygones be bygones, and that's just it. Like, after watching this episode, I will watch a Captain Shaw and Commander 7 show about the Titan. I will. The ship's even starting to grow on me, to be perfectly honest. Like, yeah, she's a little rough on the eyes at times, but finding out that the inspiration was to have that Kirk feeling, that modernized constitution, yeah, I think they could have done a better job, but you know what? It's at least at least we know the reason now that they wanted that. So
I will say this. I will watch a Shaw and 7 Titan series if they do one thing. Or they just have to do one thing. Explain why no one can see freaking anything on the ship and why the lights are so damn low. Okay? If they can explain that there's like some species on the ship, that can't have bright light, I'll buy it.
You bring it up, and I hate to do this, but Discovery Season 1 actually explained it, and it was a worthwhile explanation, and that was because Lorca was from the Mirror Universe, and the Mirror Universe folks are sensitive to light. So, man. It's like Discovery Season 1 set up the potential for a good series, and then they just were like, nah.
Well, that's it. That's my problem, right? Like, I don't know.
I don't either.
I think we need...
But...
I think after this season, I would like to see Trek take a year or two off, and have like a palate cleansing sequence, and then get back into Trek. I think we need a little bit of a break in between.
I think that'd be great, but I don't think that's going to work with the investors.
Yeah.
So it's a good idea, just probably not going to happen. That said, however, I like where these 4 episodes are going. Dave Cullen, who did get advanced screening, does say that episode 5 is his favorite. So he's been on the money with Picard so far. He's on the money with most everything. I don't agree with everything he says. There's a few views he has that I'm like, no. But he's his own man, so am I. So, however, I do align with him on a lot of other things, and so it was hard for me to ignore that. He's the reason that I decided to watch Picard at all, to be perfectly honest. I was going to give it a try, but now we're here now, and I don't regret this decision at all, and I hope none of you guys do either. I think my favorite moment was that proper TNG reunion conference room where we had Riker, Picard Jr., and Crusher all talking in the same room about, okay, let's do what we know we're good at. That was the moment where I was like, Star Trek's back. That's it right there. Yes, it's still got the action movie vibes, but like I said, it's another flavor. It's something else. It's not Discovery. It's not the last 2 seasons of the Dementia Dream we don't need to talk about right now. This is its own thing. And it's finally giving us the Star Trek that we wanted. It is the best new Trek has given since, I would say, Star Trek Beyond. I actually liked Beyond. That's another conversation. So, I'm excited for episode 5. I'm going to say this, and we're going to go ahead and unless there's any last minute thoughts you want to give on Picard Season 3, all right, moving on. I will say this too. I'm thoroughly enjoying Star Trek Picard. I am not enjoying Mandalorian so far.
Okay.
I'm going to say, so for my quick non-spoiler overview, I don't hate it. I do think that a lot of people saying that it's going woke clearly need to go back. Oh, right. Now we're back to
Yep.
proper lighting here. I will say that those who are saying that it's woke, you guys need to go back and rewatch Clone Wars. And I think, does Bo-Katan show up in Rebels? I don't remember off the top of my head. But
Bo-Katan does not show up in Rebels. She does, her Sabine Wren does, though.
right. So Bo-Katan is in not in Rebels, but she's an established character, a badass Mandalorian. Nothing that she does in this episode is at all out of character. It's actually right in character. It was nice to see her being the proper Bo-Katan. I just feel that narratively the execution hasn't been good, but we'll get into that more on spoilers. I'm still obviously going to watch it. We'll watch the rest of the season. It's still, that's the other thing I have to remind myself is like, okay, I just need to turn the brain off or turn the brain down to like, 1 or 2, as far as thinking power goes, because it's still Star Wars. I will give credit. This still feels like proper original trilogy vibes. This still feels like the Star Wars that we want to get back to. So despite my small misgivings overall, I still think we got a good thing going. I'm just really enjoying Star Trek a lot more right now. But we'll go ahead and go around the room. John, why don't we start with your non-spoiler review this time?
Yeah, for me, okay, so I really feel like Mandalorian is a bingey show. I feel like we're getting a lot of the same things we're just now getting over with Picard, which is like we're trying to set up season 3, right? We're trying to get everybody that's going to be a recurring character, just like kind of like we had Gina Carano, and we had to collect everybody through episodes 1, 2, and 3 of season 1. Like, to me, I feel like where your hang up with the narrative is I feel like Mandalorian is one of the few shows that actually understands the binge story, where it's like you're going to come in and you're going to hear a story about a bounty hunter, but if you listen all the way along, you're going to hear the story about a man becoming a father. And now season 3 is him starting to teach a Jedi how to be a Mandalorian, because obviously you had to get that information from season 1 of Book of Boba Fett, which hopefully is the only book of Boba Fett, but the last few episodes where it tells us why Grogu came back.
Well, I just want to jump in on that comment real quick. It's the only book of Boba Fett done that badly. Okay, the guy who plays, was his name, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. The guy who plays Boba Fett does deserve a second season done the right way. And that's all I'll say. Or just keep him in Mandalorian. Yes. He stole the show in season 2 of Mandalorian. That was the badass Boba Fett. That's why I was excited for Book of Boba Fett. And then we got Book of Boba Fett. So I would like to just bring him back. Just have him run, buddy cop duo in Mandalorian. That's my advice. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah, that sums up my thoughts. I think it's a slow burn, but slow burns are fun.
Fair enough. I'll keep that under
all of them in a row.
Under advisement.
Yeah, I would actually argue that if you look at the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian, the first 3 episodes of each of those seasons really are a slow burn that build to a fever pitch. And the reason why we love Mandalorian seasons is the back half of the season, not necessarily the front half. The front half takes a lot of time to establish everything. That being said, man, we got a straight up, this felt like almost an Indiana Jones kind of episode in a lot of ways, right? Like we kind of got Indiana Mandalorian. And dude, we got Florida Mandalorian too, right? We got something, right? It was a lot of fun. I felt like I watched 2 or 3 episodes in this episode in a lot of ways, if that makes any sense. Like, it could have been broken up almost. I felt like they really respected, though, the narrative they're trying to build, and they're trying to give us enough backstory and enough information to be able to move forward and be able to understand how important later pieces of this season are going to be. that's kind of what I got from it. I do feel like we got the right amount of Grogu in this. I felt we got the right amount of comedy mixed in with the action, right? And I do feel like we got just the right amount of the more silly characters without overloading and making those silly characters steal time from the important ones. And that's good, right? I mean, that's a balance that we want to see in our force of the silly campiness of Star Wars versus the serious spiritual stuff in Star Wars. I think that's really all I can say without moving too much into spoiler territory. Yeah.
All right. Well, so yeah, I was right. Florida Man apparently does guard Mandalore, which I honestly did not expect to have called that. That was crazy. It's just so. Call Me Chato made some good points about the dialogue, and I have to agree. You know, it's not. Yeah, in order to sustain oneself, a Mandalorian must know how to chew food and swallow, and it's like you're just taking basic life steps and making them sound like like a fortune cookie wisdom, and it's just bad. So I'm not too impressed with the actual narrative dialogue, and I felt narratively it was kind of sloppy to have him go to Bo-Katan and then leave Bo-Katan, and then the kid's gonna go get the ship and get Bo-Katan, who's gonna come save him, so the kid saves him. Really felt like Wesley saves the Enterprise to me. And I think I'm just kind of over the whole Grogu being a main part of the show aspect, but of course money is needed, so we need that we need that little merchandise, baby. And I just, those are the issues that I have that are making it hard for me to enjoy it. Like, can we move on to something new and fresh? No? Okay.
See, I don't know. I'm going to disagree with you there. And I disagreed with Shadow when he said it too.
Well, you know what we say about disagreements on this show. We don't allow that crap. No, I'm just kidding.
No, okay. Hear me out on this, right? Before, it was Grogu always needing the rescue. Okay? This is really the first time we see Grogu going on the rescue, right? We see that he is starting to become more capable. And, we're getting something from that. He's growing up, for lack of a better term, in front of us now. We're getting to see him mature and become, I'm hoping, more of a partner to Mando, as opposed to a wolf and cub kind of story. I'm hoping we're going to see a wolf pack come from this, and I feel like this is how it builds.
Yeah, so I had to save it for the spoilers because I felt like Parker was really onto something with the bringing Boba Fett back. To me, I feel like they've actually really set this up. Like, right now we have the Mandalorian, but I feel like we're about to start the Mandalorians, and it's going to be Din Djarin with the Darksaber, Bo-Katan as his number 7, number 2. And then we're going to have Boba Fett come in and be his scout, his sniper and Boba Fett's sniper teammate. Like, I feel like one of the main reasons why they keep going back to Tatooine is, one, they think that's what made it a lot of people super into Star Wars, but it's not. Tatooine was actually always the worst part. We always hated the fact that they went to a desert planet. But finally, they are starting to make this city an actual wretched hive of villainy and scum. And in terms of bounty hunters and Mandalorians, that's home. That's the one place where the officials aren't going to officially find all the Mandalorians, so they stay in those spots. So I kind of see that they could save Boba Fett by finally having a real Hutt level leader show up, like Din Djarin. I think one of the things that they've been showing about Din Djarin is he respects the code because he knows the power of it. And if he knows the power of the code, then that means his enforcement and utilization of it could be more extreme than Mandalore's seen since before the fall. And I really, really feel like they've been teasing that this whole time. Like they're actually doing a very, very good job of basically proving to the executives, like, give us all of the Mandalorians. We'll give you the greatest army Star Wars has ever seen, and the Jedi are going to wish they had our writing. And I'm about it. I'm super about it. I want Star Wars to turn into Mandalorian versus Jedi versus Sith versus Rebels versus Empire. Like, I want the fans to be divided in that regard, not in terms of whether or not a movie is worth viewing.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to say this, and this is a piece that I've been debating over, and this is actually what made the episode kind of hard for me, and I want to hear your guys' opinion. And now that we're in spoiler zone, I can actually voice this opinion. So, Din finally makes it to the living waters under Mandalore. Am I the only one that felt like they were intruding on something private when he starts reciting the code as he gets into it?
Yeah, real quick though. Eddie Arndt writes in, Mando just seems like the episodes are just too short. Anyone else feel that? Yeah, actually. I feel like we could do like 45 minutes to 50 long minute runtime on episodes.
Okay, but isn't that exactly the best complaint?
Yeah, we're not getting enough? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So you're saying he goes to the living waters, he doesn't disturb it, or sorry, say again
So when he goes into when he's at the living waters, and you can see, like, again, awesome acting from this dude, acting under a mask like this. But you can see he's in awe of this place, right? Like, you can feel the awe coming off of him that he's reached this point of this sacred place. When he starts saying the creed, I really felt like I was intruding on something. Like, I felt like this is such a sacred, spiritual moment for him, and I kind of wanted to give him his privacy. Like, if that makes any sense at all, like, I wanted, like, I felt like I was walking in on somebody's, like, bris or something like that. Like, you know what I mean? Or like this sacred elevation moment, and I didn't feel like I had earned the right to be there. If that makes any sense. Like, that's kind of where I was.
Well, it makes
complete sense, because I felt the opposite in terms of, like, I did feel worthy of being there.
Okay.
It legitimately felt like the Warriors room in terms of he never lost his warriorness. He just also showed his fatherly side, which goes against his code, and now he's going back to it. But first, he had to, break it. But I don't know, to me, I felt like this was like the most romantic version of the Marine Corps Crucible.
Right. But
and that's why I felt like I was allowed to be there.
Yeah, no. But, like, okay.
No, I guess everything else you said was right. I just only disagree that I felt like I was allowed to be there.
Fair enough. Like, and I guess I should put some context to this, okay? For the Wiccan tradition, whenever somebody is it becomes a witch. When they get their moment where their training is, for lack of a better term, their first phase of their training is complete, and they get to be part of that initiation ritual. It's something deeply personal, deeply sacred. And getting the opportunity to witness one is, you only have people there that had a vested interest in your training, shall we say? Like, you have people that helped you get there, kind of thing, is the people that are supposed to be there. And I don't know. To me, like I said, I felt like an intruder. I felt like, you shouldn't be there.
So I think it's because, contrary to what I said about the writing, that means that the writing has been effective in capturing your immersion into the situation. I do think you're reading into it a bit much, in the sense that you're projecting your own personal experience on there. And so I think that really shows how the story was able to connect to you on a personal level. And so I think it just shows that in this situation, the writing did its job effectively.
Right.
So I totally get what you're saying, and I agree. But for narrative purposes, of course, we have to watch.
Oh yeah, we have to see it.
But that's awesome that you shared that, because that again that tells me, okay, despite some of my issues with the dialogue, like, one must breathe air into lungs in order to sustain existence. Contrary to that, it worked in this situation. I agree. The moment he's going in the living waters and he's saying the thing, and I'm like, oh man, this is actually really good. I just wish it didn't feel so sloppy getting to this point. And then he gets sucked in, and then Bo-Katan saves him, and then, you know, it turns out the creature was just doing what it was supposed to do the whole time. I thought that was really cool. What was that in the water, though?
That's a mythosaur.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a crate dragon, but...
No. That's a mythosaur.
They said it right at the start. They said this was supposedly the breeding place of a mythosaur. And she'd never been, because she had never needed to, like, redo her rights. And it turns out that supposedly it wasn't supposedly. Like, the Mandalorians are so BA that their legends are legit.
And 100%, this is setting up something big, because we've gotten in the first season, right, that the first Mandalore was the guy who tamed a mythosaur, right? And that the mythosaur is such this powerful symbol, right up there with the, you know, it's like, the Darksaber's cool, and we'll follow the guy who has the Darksaber. But if you tame a mythosaur, you know, you're the new pope. You know what I mean? Like, we will do whatever we freaking have to do to make sure that, you know, like, he'll be basically coming out, and the Smith will be like, okay, you know, you're in charge. I'm just going to take a backseat and do whatever the hell you say now.
Well, okay, so I think the Smith already is saying that, and she said that when he brought the Dark Blade. In season 2, she was like, yeah, you're in charge now. But then she asked him if he removed his helmet because he said he was unworthy, and he admitted that more. And so she was like, yeah, this dude's 100% in charge. I think him taming the mythosaur is where Bo-Katan and all of her acolytes fall in line.
Yeah.
Like, I think the Darksaber, I don't know, mostly because I can't remember, but I feel like the Darksaber was a key piece in taming the mythosaur. And that's why it heralded it. It's not. Okay. But...
Okay. So, the first Mandalore, the first Mandalore, the guy named Mandalore, tamed the mythosaur. Everyone followed him. He's the guy who set down the creed, all of it. The guy who originally owned the Darksaber was a Mandalorian who the Jedi realized had Force ability and took him and trained him. So he was both a Jedi and a Mandalorian. He then came back to lead the Mandalorians and proceeded to kick the Jedi's ass across the galaxy. Right? Which is interesting, because now we have a Jedi in Grogu who's now with the Mandalorians, training to be a Mandalorian.
I think we finally have some hardcore galactic culture showing its face. Because, like, why do the Jedi focus on younglings? And why do the Mandalorian only swear in children? Because if you can raise them in your creed, they'll always come home. And I don't think Grogu's a Jedi. I think what we saw in Book of Boba Fett, but, you know, in Grogu's story, is that Grogu was a child in contention, and we saw him choose his contention. So I if anything, I feel like Grogu, you know, 50 years from now or 200 years from now, depending on his age rate and his growth rate, I feel like he's going to get Jedi'd again. They're going to take him back, you know, bring him back into the fold after Luke, so Luke can't tell him that he knew Grogu, because, you know, he outlived Luke. And then, like, just in general, like, say 50 years, ignore all the other canon we've heard about Luke, just 50 years over Luke. Luke's dead anyways because he's a human. Grogu gets pulled back in because he's a kid, a youngling, but he's spent 50 years being a Mandalorian, and just because he hasn't like figured out his vocal box, he gets, you know, abducted and taken back, and we get Mandalore 1 2.0 on the big screen.
Yeah. There's some real potential in the synchronicities they're building.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, just I really hope the you know, how to be a Mandalorian dialogue actually shapes up to something meaningful.
Okay,
I
wait,
mean,
were you mad about the navigational charts and like why do you study maps?
that one was a little better, but it was the one that he said like in the first episode that was, it's like I said, it's just basic things that are meant to sound like wisdom. Like, in order for a Mandalorian to properly eat Taco Bell, he must make sure that he has Pepto-Bismol. Stuff like that.
The maps thing, I love that because like a lot of people like can consider that dry, but like what's the first rule of reading a map?
Know where the hell you are?
Right and up.
What?
All maps, right and up. You read from right and then up. Like, if you're trying to read a map, first you have to know your grid coordinates, obviously. But, like, if you're not reading a map right and up, you're not going to reveal your grid coordinates properly, and then nobody's ever going to find you. It's not as easy as people think it is. Know where you are, like...
Yeah, I agree, but a crash course to a child in the spaceship also isn't going to, especially when you add the 3D element that space axis is more than just, you know, 2 axes of navigation.
But also talking to a 2-year-old.
Some would argue 9, but there's at least feedback. 3.
No, I mean, in
Quote
the feedback.
from my book.
In the response, like, are you tracking? Are you tracking? Like, you're getting grunts. You're not sure if they're actually comprehending, and that's so hard as a teacher. So you just tell the rules you remember as you remember them when you remember them, and hope they get it. And then one day when they finally go, wait, why do we do this? Then you get details.
Yeah, I really hope you're right that this is the beginning of Din Djarin's clan, because you just gave me more reason to hate the premise of this season so far. So thanks for that.
Okay.
And I'm not looking for a reason here, guys. Come on.
Okay, well, you want a good one? Like, a good reason to like this one? Getting back to the Florida Mandalorian. Did you notice that the suit, the big exoskeleton thing he was, you know, when he was in the big piece, looked suspiciously like a basilisk war droid?
That's what I thought, too. Yeah, it definitely looked like a crab droid.
Well, so we could, you know, like, there's some good toys potentially lying around down in the depths of Mandalore. I feel like we've hopefully can get more fun out of that bit and piece here and there. Right?
Tell you what, because this is what made it hard for me to want to end up coming around on Last Jedi and finally accepting that movie is a turd. Give me a solid KOTOR reference. Show me Canderous Ordo's blaster or something that references Knights of the Old Republic to tie in the Mandalore lore, the Mando lore, and I will probably be enough of a fanboy to just sell out my opinions on that alone, because that was what I liked about Last Jedi, was when we heard when you heard the Jedi code whispered, and the only time we've ever heard that was Knights of the Old Republic. That was the inception of the Jedi and Sith codes. And I was like, when I heard that, I was like, come on, this movie's gotta be bad. And then Rise of Suckwanker came out, and it was like, oh, it's terrible, it's bad. So yeah, if you want to throw me a fanboy bone, give me a KOTOR reference, and I'll promote the hell out of this. Okay, let's not get too carried away. But I will sing praises for the Mandalorian if we try to continue to make KOTOR canon.
I would say that, like, that's the perfect difference. Like, I knew the Jedi code first because it was a meme, even though I had heard it first in KOTOR originally. But I saw the meme and was like, "Oh, that's a Jedi code. I like that. That's cool." I didn't know. Like, I just now learned that that's where it was first ever actually canonized. And I think that's the issue. Is I think Last Jedi was memes. It was written from memes, written from people just reposting their favorite parts about Star Wars. and also, you know, only having 4 or 5 gifts to jump off of. So like, yeah, we're gonna keep sharing them. It's like, it's like, you never made it easy for us to make gifts. So that's why we have the 7 that those exceptional nerds that made.
Yeah.
Like, if you'd made it easy for us to make gifts of all of your movies, I guarantee you there'd be a trillion gifts. Every single show, every line you've ever seen, if it was easy for us to make them, we would. I would. I regularly think mentally in gifts of my favorite comedy skits. So like, I think that's where Last Jedi fell off, whereas Mandalorian was like, wait, where did this code come from? Oh, Kotar? Wait, there's a group of, oh, the Mandalorians? Let's just make a whole series about that group. And look at what that happened. It was like, you took the seedling and look at the tree. Whereas like Last Jedi, the whole sequel, whatever, the trilogy, it was just seeds on seeds on seeds on seeds. And they were like, let's see if any of these grow. None of them do. Let's plant more seeds.
Hell, let's blame the fans and call them racists and homophobes and whatever buzzword of the week we can just grind into oblivion. All right. Any last words on The Mandalorian? I mean, I think we've... Well,
I think that there's definitely promise building. I think if we see more of what we're seeing crescendoing, I think we're going to get somewhere with it. But I figure we've got probably about 2 more episodes until we start seeing everything build together. I think they've got another episode or so of building, and then we're going to start seeing the actual story of the season unfold.
Yeah. In order to fly a starfighter... Oh, go ahead, John.
In that instance, I would say that they did tell us where this season is going. First, Din Djarin is going to, you know, redeem his honor. And what does he do with that honor now? Like, we already knew he took on Grogu. We already knew that he is a Mando, like he's a Marine's Marine. He's a Mando's Mando. And in that essence, with the Darksaber, I feel like the next episode is him versus the Mythosaur. And him and Bo-Katan finally, like, bonding through trauma, bonding through experience, shared conquering of the Mythosaur. And I think we're going to, like, honestly, this is like the one time where I want the princess to marry the knight in shining armor.
Right.
Because this is the one marriage where, like, in Disney, both are like super hyper killers. And it's kind of a cool marriage. I actually care to see the happily ever after, because I do believe it. Like, if they trauma bond in this instance, like, I don't think their bond will ever waver. And if it never wavers, 2 Mandalorians in love, like, the Empire doesn't stand a chance. Like, the Jedi thought they had power, but if they had 2 Mandalorians in love with Jedi powers, there would be no such thing as war.
Oh, sorry, excuse me. No, I'm not on board with that, but I guess I'm willing to be won over on how it plays out, but go ahead.
How about this? How about this then? Katie Sackhoff mouthing off to the blacksmith.
Okay.
It's Mr. and Mrs. Smith in Star Wars without them not knowing that they're both spies. Like, it's the epitome of what do 2 action heroes in love do? Gratuitous action.
All right. Well, time to head back to our galaxy. Enough of that. Whatever you're talking about.
Let's do it.
All right, Star Trek Deep Space Nine is still the best Star Trek ever created. And, you know, we have more proof positive to that with these last 2 episodes. These latest Season 2, first episode is, of course, Rivals. And I will get the synopsis pulled up. Rivals, which I think is criminally underrated on IMDb, but I'm not surprised because the people at IMDb are a bunch of, you know, IMDb dumbass, or that didn't work. Anyway, IMDb idiots. Storyline. Martis and El Orion, con man, similar to Guinan from TNG, is being held in detention for trying to work a mark. In his cell, he meets Kos, a dying alien with a strange gambling device, who tells Martus of a string of bad luck he's had, which he implies was brought on by the gambling device. After Kos dies, Martus takes the device and decides to become Quark's rival, opening another casino on the promenade. Meanwhile, O'Brien has constructed a racquetball court to get some physical exercise, and to his chagrin finds out Dr. Bashir plays well. O'Brien is no match for Bashir, much to his frustration, yet he keeps challenging Bashir, who fears for the Chief's health, and tries to get him to stop. John decided to bail on the synopsis, so why don't you go first?
All right, so...
Oh.
Sorry. John, go for it. Go for it.
John, but if you want to be John tonight, that's fine.
No. I'll let John be John.
It's fun. I think Quark having a gambling adversaries. I feel like that's an interesting thing that we don't normally get to see. And I don't know. I thought it was a fun episode. I'll let you go, Corion.
Well, I was gonna say I freaking love this episode. We get to see what I would argue is probably one of our first really Quark-centric episodes in a long string of Quark-centric episodes. And this one's just fun, man. Like, random weirdness going on the ship or on the station. We get, the silliness of a con man to out-con, Quark's cons. Like, I can only imagine the headache that Odo had after this day, right? Like, having to deal with both of these jokers on the station.
He needed to shapeshift a second brain just to keep his sanity intact.
Right? Yeah, I mean, it works, right? And everybody else, trying to figure out what the heck is going on. We had, the weird alien device of the week. And I mean, this is kind of a weird alien device of the week episode.
Bit of an OP device if you really think about its implications.
Well, it is, but it's also terrifying too, right? Because, one string of bad luck and you're done, right? So, on one hand, like I said, I think it's it's an interesting one. I can't imagine the person that would voluntarily hit that button without rigging the device first. But, I thought it was a fun episode. I thought it was a great way to do it. I loved Quark's character progression in it. I loved that Rom had some character progression in this episode as well. And we got to see more of like the Quark family of ridiculous Ferengi play out. I thought that was great. I don't know, man. This is one of those episodes where they take some time off the main plot and just give us some fun and just give us some, like the side story collections that we kind of want every once in a while to break up from the tension of the really serious episodes. Like, after Sanctuary, we needed a good laugh.
We needed a Sanctuary.
Yeah, like we needed a vacation from the serious, and that's what Rivals to me is, and I think that's what it was designed to be, and I think it's great for it.
Yeah, I think this just further cements the I said earlier in the broadcast that Star Trek benefits from diverse styles of storytelling, and I think Deep Space Nine in of itself exemplifies that strength, because we go from, some serious, thought-provoking, here's this, really tense situation, to, okay, let's relax and have some fun. And it's done in the most perfect way possible, all around, from Bashir and O'Brien's side story that gets tied into the main story after, to the Rivals, the fact that Quark is now having to deal with somebody who's just as good at his own game and figuring out a way to beat him and whatnot. And it's a lot of fun. And it's what I absolutely love most about Star Trek, is its ability to let the hair down, to take off the serious cap, to have a moment of Yeah, this is what Star Trek is. Star Trek has silly moments. Star Trek has its silly cheese, but it doesn't at any point make you feel uncomfortable or awkward the whole time it's going around. I didn't have these thoughts until I was like, I think midway through the episode, and I'm like, this is like really cheesy, but it doesn't bother me because it's supposed to be, because it's being executed in an intelligent manner. It's intellectual cheese, for lack of a better expression.
You know, it's like not every episode can be the let this be your last battlefield. Sometimes you need a Harry Mudd episode as a palate cleanser.
Right.
Right?
Exactly. And well, I think that TOS went a little bit, overboard, but again, product of its time. Oh well, it is what it is.
Exactly.
This is the proper refinement of that cheesy Star Trek that does a lot better job of execution than Run Along Home.
Yeah.
So,
John. And I mean, no, go for it.
I was say John can have it, but if you got a thought, please.
I was just gonna say, like, there's no deeper philosophical. We got to dig down into the deeper spiritual and metaphysical and ethical, subtext of this thing. This one was just a fun one, right?
Exactly.
Which is the worst thing you can say about gambling.
Hey, gambling's fun when you win. Been there, done that. Recommend as long as you're responsible.
Gambling is fun when you're on Wall Street and you're just playing with people's pensions and not your actual pension.
Speaking from experience?
Well, no, that's what I'm saying from like experience watching the freaking SVB is following in the footsteps. Like, to me, I think that like when we take gambling as this like quirky thing that just happens, it's like, well, it's ruining a lot of people's lives.
Well, yeah,
literally,
I'm going to have to disagree with that because I've also
gambling in the stock market, the housing market wouldn't have collapsed twice and ballooned for a third time.
Okay. You're talking about unethical government gambling with our lives, which I agree is a problem.
It's BlackRock, it's private equity.
Yeah. That's not what we're talking about when we talk about gambling. Okay, this is casino gambling. Now, I know a lot of people like to lecture the whole, the casinos are bad because people are throwing away their lives. Okay, people are throwing away their lives at the casino because they choose to throw away their lives at their casino. Not a single person at the gambling tables in Vegas is brought there with a gun to their head and say, here you go, gamble away your life savings. That's not. People are willfully giving consent to gamble their life savings.
That casinos are the only business that actually figured out how to operate a retail, and that's make it more fun than home.
How to have honest gambling
is the most like awkward, hard chairs for in their reception area, the cheapest toilet paper they can give you. But when you go to the casino, they're like, "Oh, you're playing at the tables? Would you like a free drink? Would you
hey man
come to your chair? Would you like to be here longer?" Whereas like every other
enjoy our $2 buffet. That's like like a $30 buffet back home.
Look, I worked. I used to put ATMs into casinos. It was one job I used to have, and when you were done the day, you'd go to a different casino and go play the tables there. And man, I used to have so much random fun doing that. But we always had rules. Like we would only take in the money that we were ready to say, you know what, this is how much I'm willing to lose this, this outing, right? Like I'm taking $20. And if I wind up losing $20, that's the amount of money I would have spent on like a couple of hours screwing around, going to watch a movie or whatever anyway. And if you gamble with that kind of attitude and you go there and you have fun and you let them buy you drinks and, you play around and, you start winning a lot and they go, hey, would you like to go and, get a tickets to a complimentary show or whatever? And you go, yeah, sure, why not? And you go and you have a great night. Then it's fantastic. If you go in and with your last $5 and you're determined that you're going to turn that into 20, that's not the place to do it, man. It really isn't. So it depends on your attitude when it comes to gambling, I think, right? Just like any potentially addictive high, if you're going in with the correct attitude about it and you stick to that plan, you're probably going to have a good time.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that, because in the end, life is just choice and consequence. And I mean, I've heard the excuses people make that, especially with like loot box gambling in Star Trek Online, people are like, oh, it preys on the people that can't control themselves. Like, no, it really doesn't. It just gives you the option. It doesn't say you need this to play the game. I mean, the best game the best starship in the game can be bought with $30. And yes, I will hold true that the Terran Lexington Dreadnought is the best ship in Star Trek Online. You can purchase it right out of the store. It doesn't require a gambling box. So the gamble box ships are kind of optional. Now, if there's one you really want, there's other ways to get it. The point is, that whole argument of, oh, it preys on weak-minded folk, I don't buy it. Unless somebody holds a gun to your head, unless somebody points a gun at your head and says, you will do this gambling, there's nothing super predatory about it. You can turn off the predatory stuff.
Where I and the federal government and the majority of the industry disagrees, and that was with what happened with the Fortnite makers, Epic Games, where they're actually fully like paying the money, where like their games were so easy for kids to spend parents' money. Like, the kids didn't even know they were spending thousands of dollars, because kids have no comprehension of thousands of dollars. It was clicks. Literally, click, click, click. I own all this. And mom and dad come in a month later like, hey, how'd you just spend $1,000? And I'm still with you here, Parker, because parents, it's your responsibility to know what you're giving your kids.
Wherever you put your credit card number, that's on you.
Yeah, like, I
don't give Quark your last bar of Latinum, guys.
Exactly, but to me, at the same time, I feel like the reason why so many companies have gotten away with the predatory stuff, like what Epic Games absolutely, definitely, the law agrees, says was predatory practice, and that's not what casinos do. Guess what? Can your kid go in a casino? Hard no. Your weekend is ruined if you're stuck with the kids in Vegas.
Nah. Dude, if you've gone to Vegas with a kid,
if your goal
you can have a different kind of fun.
I've only ever had fun in Vegas as a kid, so I know that it can be done, but also, like, I mean more in terms of, like, if it's you and your spouse is like, I'm going to the tables, and you're the one stuck with the kid, you're not going to the tables ever. Versus, like, what Fortnite did was, you and your spouse play Fortnite and your kid jumps on and suddenly your kid spent both of your guys' entire savings account because your kid didn't know the difference, because you didn't tell them there was a difference, because you were a bad parent. Like, yes, it was predatory. Yes, Epic Games should pay, but every parent who let their kid do that, you are a bad parent and fix yourselves. Like, it was the least bad parent you could be. You lost your money.
Yeah. So credit where due, John. You pointed out a specific example. You brought evidence and facts, and I'm not saying that there aren't certain practices that are predatory. What I mean when I'm talking about it is it's a general argument that people make that, the fact that loot boxes even exist is predatory, and I'm like, no.
Exactly. I'm so with you, because, like, to me, all I was trying to do was show you that there is a line that the government agreed on, that we, the people of the government, agree on, and I agree with that one. But also, I still hold the parents responsible as well. Like if I was the judge, I'd be like, Epic Games, you guys never should have done that. Like, obviously. But parents,
y'all stupid. Eddie Arndt writes in, and this should be a good topic for discussion. Cisco spinoff like Picard, I could see that being a disaster. Completely agree.
I agree.
I think they're doing Cisco dirty with a comic book, I think is what they have, which I'm like, whatever, more fan fiction.
There's beta canon as well where he comes back.
Yeah, and I think that at this point in time, because I really don't care to see any de-aged Cisco. I think that's just gonna look worse than de-aged Picard and Riker did in that sequence that honestly didn't even need to be de-aged. You could have literally just said, yeah, this is some years ago. I mean, okay, if I could still appreciate Wet Hot American Summer, where, the 30, 40-year-old actors and actresses are playing teenagers, I mean, Star Trek doesn't have to do that either.
I'm pretty sure the only people that said actresses needed to look younger were the pedos.
Yeah. I will say this. I think we got a very satisfactory end to Cisco's story, the way it was done. I don't really need to see it revisited.
I agree.
Or if we do revisit it, it would have to be something so universe ending that he came back for. That he would come back, deal with the universe ending, and get out. Well, no. Like after the satisfactory ending, like to come back from an ending that was good.
Like name 10 shows that have a satisfactory ending. Like that was the biggest spoiler I've ever heard.
Sorry, man.
Sorry, it ends very well. Oh man, no point in watching now. All right, tune in next week. We'll discuss Star Trek, Picard, and then what do we want to do instead of DS9 now, guys? We don't need to. John just had it spoiled, so you guys want to do Voyager? I don't want to do Voyager.
No, I don't want to.
I meant that more towards your Sparker. Like you're like, hey, you're going too far. I was like, he already crossed the line. He said it ends well. Like, I'm just always perpetually ready for Season 8 Game of Thrones. No matter what series I start, it's always going to end Season 8 Game of Thrones.
Good. Keep that expectation low, then. You'll like it more. I mean, you won't be disappointed. Yeah, it's...
I think I could name 10 series that end well.
I think we could do a proper Jake Sisko show if we really wanted to, about a struggling...
That would be good.
Oh yeah, about a struggling author who has no friends and decides to start a YouTube channel. I mean, what I was saying was, no, I think there's any number of characters on DS9 you could do a spin-off series about, and it'd be good. But I really do think that Sisko, I don't know. Unless Avery Brooks expresses enthusiasm about coming back, my answer is leave it alone.
Well, I feel like I get Marvel spinning off on characters, right? We have entire comic books devoted to each individual character, and then we have the Ultimate Avengers, and we have the Alliance, the Allegiance, the Justice League, whatever, right? But Star Trek should have only ever been about the ships.
All right.
And every new series, DS9, it is Deep Space Nine mining vessel. Star Trek Enterprise, even new Next Generation, what was it about? It was the next generation of Starfleet. The whole thing.
Yeah.
So nowhere to occur.
All right. So let's we're going to go ahead and get this quick because I really don't care to save this episode for next week. I think we can squeeze in a quick little discussion dialogue about it. Good point though, Eddie Arndt. That was some good inspired discussion. We appreciate it. Synopsis for The Alternate. DS9 Season 2, Episode 12. Odo gets a visit from Dr. Mora Pol, the scientist who researched him in a laboratory on Bajor. Mora still seems to be unhappy with Odo's decision to leave for Deep Space Nine, and Odo is still not happy with the way the scientist treated him. Mora gets him interested to resume work on finding his origins when he tells him a Bajoran science probe recently scanned a planet in the Gamma Quadrant and found DNA patterns looking just like Odo's. Sisko agrees to let Odo, Mora, Dax, and the Bajoran doctor... and the Bajoran doctor Weld... What? Oh, Bajoran Dr. Weld. That's right. I forgot that guy was in this episode. Take a runabout. Yeah. On the planet, they find a mysterious pillar, and Dr. Weld finds a life form the team is looking for. They decide to beam the pillar and the life form on board and take them to DS9. Wow, that's like a really great synopsis for the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Doesn't cover shit.
That doesn't cover anything about the episode, and in a lot of ways, I kind of like that because this is one of those episodes you need to see.
Like that's a great, it is, and it's definitely again this one's rated 6.7 on IMDb. Yeah, those IMDb dumbasses don't know shit. It's a good episode. It's a necessary episode. Definitely one you don't want to skip. This gets us more into, the mystery behind Odo's people, which we totally don't know anything about right now.
No.
Never heard them referenced. John, this would be a good time for your brain damage to take effect with regard to certain aspects of Picard.
Odo has a people?
Well, according to this episode, maybe.
According to this episode and nothing else we've watched, anyway, Yeah, this is really great because we get a lot of Odo character development, which we haven't really had, and it's really fascinating to see the effects that having a traumatic childhood can really bring. And of course, it's kind of a victim of circumstance. Obviously, Dr. Mora didn't necessarily mean to harm Odo in the process of his development, but parents say the same bullshit when justifying why their kid's in jail. So it really shows that dynamic between parent and between mentor and subordinate that doesn't really work out well, but in the end the mentor realizes, oh, I was wrong to have wanted to keep you here because you're clearly thriving on your own, whereas I was holding you back. And that's a really humbling moment that I think a lot of parents, and not necessarily like biological parents, but just people that fill those parental roles, can learn to recognize that if your kid really does feel like they're ready to fly, maybe give them a chance to try to spread their wings a little. And if it doesn't work out, then catch them. But don't be that shithead parent that says, oh, you'll come crawling back to me. I'm very certain of this. No, screw that. That's toxic. That's wrong. That's you wanting to wish that your kid fails. And what more horrible thing to wish on your children than for them to fail just so you can feel vindicated? That's nonsense. Go ahead, Corion.
Yeah.
I clearly have touched a nerve here.
Unless your kid storms out the door saying, I'm going to go be a DJ at the worst club in town, or I'm going to go sell drugs better than anybody in the Sackler family ever did.
So they're just going to become a doctor?
Well, I was going to say, unless they're a pharmacist.
Exactly. You'd be a pharmaceutical, which everyone prays. Oh, my daughter's a pharmacist. Oh, they're a drug dealer. Nice. Legally.
Except that's what I get. The Sackler family is the family that poisoned all of America.
Yeah, well, no, I hear you. But look, honestly,
in which case I do want my son to fail. If he goes after those dreams, I absolutely am justified in wanting him to fail. I never want my kid to grow up like a Sackler.
Well, yeah, obviously if I have a kid and they're like, Dad, I'm going off to be a serial killer, I'd be like, yeah, I really hope you fail. That's okay, that's different. In this instance, I'm specifically...
No, that's the line.
If they want to grow up and be bad?
Yeah, if your kid's like, I'm going to grow up and be the worst version of humanity, you're a good parent. If
I'm off to be Stalin. Well, hope it doesn't work out.
You, and that makes me better than you.
I
now,
mean,
if you say, I'm off to save the world, and it ends up being Stalinistic, now it's hard to be a good parent.
Right? I mean, like, now, on the Stalin argument, like, on one hand, yes, Stalin, bad, murdered lots of people, very terrible. On the other hand, parents probably got a nice mansion. So...
Jesus, dude. All right, what was the point you were originally going to make before we semi-endorse Stalin?
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Good ball. Good joke.
We're not endorsing Stalin. We're understanding Stalin's parents.
Yeah, but no, honestly, look, I've always felt that a parent's job is to try to impart what morals you can on your kid and then help them to succeed, right? That doesn't mean help them to succeed, in your backyard. That means help them to succeed by building a life and being able to live it. And I really feel for more because on
why is it that your feed can't cut out when you're being quiet? Like, why does it always when you start talking? Anymore. Sorry, I think you said Dr. Mora, and that's where you were.
Okay, so I was saying, like, Dr. Mora, I don't think realized that he was, raising a kid. And I think that's why he got as messed up about it as he did. I thought he was, he thought he was probably raising, like, a lab specimen until it was too late. And, I feel like as a parent, like I said, your job is to try to raise a successful human being and, impart what information you can and be there for them when they fail, right? Because everybody fails a little bit every once in a while, and it's nice to have a parent that can help get you back on track. And I feel like that's your primary job, and I don't think Mora realized he was a dad until it was way too late. And that's a pity for both of them, really. And, I only hope that this isn't the last we see of Mora, and they wind up being able to repair that relationship and move into a healthier place later down the road. You know, and as for O's people, you know, it was interesting the way they did this. It was an interesting piece that they showed us for, you know, potentially where this is going to go, where, you know, there could be some sort of big epic mission to find, you know, the Odo's home world or whatever. That would be great. I mean, I'm sure it's not going to happen because, I mean, these writers are nowhere near up to that caliber. But
It's just bad guy of the week with DS9.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, I feel like this is a great episode to show somebody that's thinking about becoming a parent, just so that they get an idea of, yeah, this is what you have to be aware of. You know, this is the argument against helicopter parenthood in a nutshell. Only chances are your kid is not going to become a giant liquid rage monster.
Unfortunately for you.
Yeah, well, right. You know, you're more likely to just be dealing with, you know, kid Stalin, I guess. But I'm gonna keep going back to that because it was just damn funny.
Fine. I mean, yeah. I mean, if a stupid or self-referential inside joke keeps us laughing, why not?
Right? I mean, you know, and I mean, people in the chat, if you're getting bored with my weird ass jokes, like, just tell me. But
then we're gonna say them honestly, even louder.
Well, yeah, but that's how I feel about it. Like, it's just, this is a good episode to show people that are thinking about being parents and realizing what being a parent is actually about.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. John, real quick, you got like 2 minutes, if that.
Yeah, I mean, I think taking the time to show parents, I like shows that actually deal with the hard parts of being a parent, which is that unknown, like, yeah, I want you to succeed, but I've seen where you've been. I wiped your butt. I know all of these things that you're bad at. Oh, wait, I also haven't had the time to double check and see if that's all true. And I think that's like the hardest part about being the parent of somebody who's, you know, growing up, living their own life, going out, meeting their own friends, doing their own thing. Like, you kind of forget that they're growing without you. And you have to constantly recheck that. And if you're not rechecking that, like, you're gonna underestimate them worse than anybody else, because your estimation of them is their new estimation of them. And I think this episode did a really good job of showing that.
Yep. All right. Well, that of course brings us to the end of our towards the end of our little program. I want to thank everybody who tuned in tonight. Nemesis of Eden, Eddie, Arndt, Orville Nation. We appreciate your contributions to the discussion, as well as just your continued support, and of course everybody watching in the background, and all of our podcast listeners, and of course we're gonna start working to deliver more consistent product again now that we've hit our 1 year. We're taking analytics more seriously, but also we're still going to deliver the content we also want to deliver, because part of our enjoyment for this show is finding that balance between what you guys enjoy and what we enjoy talking about. And so we thank you for everyone's continued support, and we hope that that also continues. Any last words, guys, for anything?
Yeah, let's get back on that Stalin debate.
Well, Corey,
I was actually going to say, guys, Thursday, transmission from the Rogue Council. We're going to be doing cryptids, so bring your weirdest monster to discuss, and we will have a wonderful time doing so.
Yeah, absolutely. John, you had a thought?
Yeah, I've just been thinking about Stalin lately, and like, I kind of want his mustache.
I think Stalin was terribly inefficient, to be perfectly honest. I think Mao really took what Stalin did, and he really, really capitalized on the amount of murdering people that Stalin could only dream of eclipsing Mao's numbers.
I feel like Stalin really took the leadership principle of inspect what you expect, and, you know, attended most of the mass murder.
Guys, I think that you guys are just delaying from ending the episode, and you all are just Stalin. I'm now going to be dodging 50 caliber bullets from Petey's Deagle for the rest of the night.
No, you don't have to worry about 50 cal. It's only the 44 there, so, you know, I'm gonna have to lob a little extra hard. But anyway, wow, almost went a whole episode without pulling out the gun. Almost. So,
Well, the view count jumped when the gun came out, so...
view count jumped, yeah. When the gun came out, we started talking about Stalin. It's almost like people on YouTube like communism or something. It's fun to talk about. I don't ever want to live in it.
Now, I guess this is the best way to put it. It makes the assumption...
I'm Peter York with the Ryder Brothers. We'll see you next week. This has been a presentation of the Ryder Brothers Tuesday Night Live Show. The Ryder Brothers, restoring respect into discourse.